What's up, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On today's Ending Explained, we're looking at The Dark and the Wicked, following an estranged family that reunite for the impending death of their father. But soon a darkness grows, marked by waking nightmares and a growing sense that something evil is taking over the family. Yup. You know, a lot of people ask me, does a movie even scare me anymore? Because you've seen so many. And the answer is, sure, of course. For the most part, I am desensitized, but there are still plenty of things out there that can make me go, ooh, give me that feeling. And I have to say, in this regard, that The Dark and the Wicked really delivers, as it's pretty dang scary, along with being quite brutal and violent, boasting many memorable moments that are really effective. Much of this is thanks to the very grim atmosphere and kind of loneliness to the cinematography, lots of wide expansive shots. This style is really hammered home throughout, and does a lot to make the shocking beats really work, and there's some decent jump scare stuff in there too. There's also the important family dynamic that is the real drive of the story, as we peel back further layers of the distance that has grown between them, that in many ways winds up being their dooms. Nobody in this family can talk to each other about anything. You gotta open up about your feelings, you know what I mean? This comes from Brian Bertino, the same bro behind the home invasion thriller The Strangers, which also had many effective moments of suspense. And this actually doesn't feel that different in a way. Rather than a trio of faceless killers, our intruder this time is a demonic entity that proceeds to destroy everything it comes across. Of course, also including the family. I say this because understanding how the family and the supernatural stories connect is important to getting the full scope of the movie and to really understand and appreciate the ending. So let's pay a visit to the fam on the goat farm in The Dark and the Wicked, breaking down the story, in particular the arcs of siblings Mike and Louise, looking into what we do find out about the devil, and explaining the sudden ending. It's early morning on a rural goat farm in the middle of nowhere in Texas. Yeehaw! Hearing a woman deeply sighing, all alone and going through her daily routine. She sings while doing some sewing. The song a hymn about going through trials and tribulations and what a friend we have in Jesus. Hearing bottles clanking, she stops, and they get more agitated, but she pays them no mind, going to visit her ailing husband. She does some writing in a journal, startled by a distant howling wolf. And this really establishes off the bat the fear and loneliness that she feels in her life, alone on a spooky ass farm, biding her time until her husband passes. Though there is way more than that going on. As we return to the barn, the bottles rattling more violently, and something is very briefly glimpsed among the goats freaking out, which is pretty clearly a demon-looking dude. I actually totally missed this until rewatching this the second time for the video. And even this time I was like, wait, what the heck is that? And I had to rewind and get like 3 inches in front of the screen and went, oh, so I did see something there. Point being, it's quick, y'all. And actually seeing this entity so early clues us in that there is indeed something evil afoot. Because a big part of our story, as we'll see, is the arrival of the mother's estranged children, who to a fault think that nothing is amiss, supernaturally at least. Though even if we miss this sighting, back in the kitchen she is deliberately chopping an onion. A chair starts to creak and slides over to her, the devil letting it know that it's here. The next day, her children Michael and Louise visit the farm, knowing that their father isn't long from death's door. And immediately things feel off with their interactions. There's no warmth to anything. And rather than appreciating the company, Mom chides them, as she told them to not come in the first place. Good to see you too, Mom, jeez Louise. But the whole point is the family is obviously very disconnected, as well as the other side of things, that Mama doesn't want more people to get tied up into the evil on the farm. So tell them about it. Just tell them what's going on. The kids note the physical toll that life has taken on their mom. Michael mentioning that she looks tired, Louise correcting that she looks like shit. All right, well, I guess you're not wrong, but it's still a pretty rude thing to say. Their distance is further highlighted at dinner, the trio munching down in total silence until Mike compliments the food, but Mom says nothing, keeping her head down. He tries to talk to her about the goats, but she shuts him down, saying it doesn't matter. Daddy said to keep working, so that's what she's doing. They try to assure her things are gonna be okay, and she gets upset, calling the whole thing stupid, and is upset that the kids never listen to her. She yells for them to go home and leaves, things clearly a bit tense and awkward between the family. The siblings are taken aback by her caustic behavior, but it's also apparent that they haven't exactly been around much in each other's lives either, with vague mentions of asking if she still works at the post office or asking how his kids are, apologizing for not calling for their birthdays. They seem to acknowledge their negligence in their relationship with their mom, Mike not wanting to leave her alone out here. She agrees, muttering she should have done something, I don't know, hugged her or something. She returns inside and locks the door, yet when looking back, it's swung wide open, seeing someone standing out in the darkness. She doesn't find anything there though, telling her mom it was just the wind. But mom knows better, staring on edge into the wilderness. Back to chopping, she does kind of vaguely tell her son something is going on, Mike suggesting that she get some sleep, and she tells him again to go. No ma'am, he asserts, but she warns that it's not what he thinks. He's all, well then what is it? But she stays silent, appearing straight terrified of the evil, but again illustrating the divide in the family and their absolute lack of communication. She returns to chopping and you just know she's gonna get that finger. The same chair moving itself behind her. In a kind of trance, she starts chopping intensely and wait for it! Yep, slices all of them bad boys clean off, as she doesn't react much, sobbing softly and then grotesquely minces the ends to bloody bits. Dinner served! The next morning the kids can't find her, and after searching around the farm, she's discovered hanging in the barn. Again, she seemed almost possessed by the entity here, and preying on her weakness, the entity forces her to instill violence upon herself, which we'll see more of as our story continues. Even after this, the siblings don't really talk much, sitting silently at the table, and Louise smokes a cigarette, honing in on that magic chair. Neighbor Charlie lends a hand with the goats, appearing upset over her unexpected death, one of the few friends that he had as well. Sitting with their father, his nurse arrives and didn't want to say anything before, but brings up that their mom was saying things, talking when she thought she wasn't listening. They ask what she would say, but she would just sit beside their father whispering, and didn't appear to be talking to him, as though someone else was there. Mom had been caring for him at night, the nurse offering to find someone else to step in, but Louise offers to take over instead, trying to now show that she is part of the family and indeed loves her dad. She visits her mom's studio and under a covered up mannequin finds a quite lovely wedding dress with a tag for her. A hopeful future that she'll never see, it appears, Louise getting emotional at the sight. She wonders with Mike who their mom was talking to, but he retorts it doesn't matter, thinking that she had just lost her marbles or something. She yells that they should have talked to her, him huffing back, well, we didn't. Later, Louise takes a shower, confused, as the door creaks open and hears looming footsteps. She assumes it's her brother, but it's really her father with white eyes who pisses himself. She shakes violently, screaming and turning away. And when Mike comes in, Dad is still in bed and unresponsive as usual. She's positive that he was in there regardless, but ultimately dismisses it as being stupid. Mike, about to head off for supplies, happens to knock off Mom's diary and joins Sarah outside. And guess what? She still doesn't want to talk about it. He brings up the diary and then he read the last page, which sounds at least a bit concerning. I know he's there in the darkness. Help me please. He's killing David. He can't breathe anymore and there's nothing that I can do to stop it. Devil.
He wants David's soul.
Well, there you go. Mom was more than aware of the so-called devil plaguing their farm, and it's after her husband's soul, and must also be behind his ailing condition. They very slowly start to piece together what's going on. Back in the barn, the cops said that their mom used the tub to hang herself, but it hadn't actually been moved until Louise used it to cut her down. And thusly, it makes no sense how she even got up there. They read more from the diary. The voices in my head, his voice, makes me want to be dead. Just as we saw with her death, she was sort of being coerced by the devil to taking her own life, breaking her down until she finally snapped. They go to a corner to see their mom's body, and he hands over something curious he found in her pocket, a collection of small crosses, as he recalls the kind that you would get at Sunday school. The kids are confused as their mother didn't go to church, showing that perhaps after this thing showed up, she started getting a little more faithful in hopes of surviving. Louise takes care of her dad, him weakly coughing and wheezing. He alarmingly starts hacking harder, and a spider crawls out of his mouth. She tries to catch it, her brother coming in asking if everything is all right. She still keeps it to herself, stammering it was nothing. Just talk to each other, people. This is madness. Mike is later awoken by the lights flicking on, but there's no one in the room, and the door is still closed. Well, that's odd. They come back on again, and Mike gets a little uneasy seeing no one else in the room still. He checks a window, hearing only more howling wolves. But when checking another window, his mother is standing outside. She smiles and starts to levitate in the air. He then hears her eerily singing inside, and she appears right behind him, vanishing when he turns the lights on. The devil appears to have a kind of sick playfulness based on what he's done to Louise, as she wakes up in the morning with lipstick marks all over her face, and when peeling away her dad's sheets, finds a tube there, trying to convince her it was somehow him responsible, but we know better. The phone rings, and it's oddly a recording about their number being disconnected, but the second call is even odder. Her mom crackling that she told her not to come here, sending Louise cowering in fear in the corner. Michael comes back from town to a priest waiting at the gate that appears to know him, or at least knows his name. What do you want to bet this is actually the devil guy, since he's apparently able to take various physical forms? He's hoping to talk and hands over one of those little crosses found on their mom, making Mike think that he must have known her. Hoping for answers about their mother, they read from her diary about the voices that call. But what if it's a lie? He won't stop. They will die. We're dead already. Spiders on my face like tears, just as Louise saw with her dad. The priest says he started coming around to see her, describing her as being scared and alone, but loved them both so much. He thought he could help, and that's all. Mike fuming, "You've done enough." The priest defends that he didn't know about any of this stuff, while they think he put these ideas in her head. Well, that is kind of true, since this definitely is the devil dude. Mike brings up that the whole family wasn't religious, thinking her newfound faith was only because of him. The priest chuckles, "It doesn't matter if you don't believe," asking if they think a wolf cares if you believe he's a wolf. It won't matter when you find him alone in the woods. It's obviously relevant for our family, and knowing this is the devil guy, he knows the family doesn't believe and is trying to prove that it doesn't matter because the evil is quite real. That is all that really matters. Michael wants him to go, him saying you both know they both needed someone and were both alone, maintaining that he helped. Mike asks, "You think the devil's out there?" And he reminds him of their mom's warning. "You think that she's crazy because she saw a wolf but did see him coming." Mike maintains that there's nothing out there. "He's already here," the priest threatens, and with that ominous declaration takes his leave. The rain pouring down, Marty at least has someone that he can talk about his true feelings with, on the phone with his wife Becky, relaying how fucked up this whole thing is and how he just wants to come home, saying mom was all he had left. Well, what about your ill father and your sister? I guess the point being he doesn't actually even care about anyone else at this point, and even when he walks around the farm, he tells her that he feels nothing. All right, at least you're being honest for a change. Louise is alone with the goats, reading from her mother's diary about him watching and being everywhere. Glass shatters and the bottles ring as she yells out for her brother, seeing a shadow growing longer on the wall behind her. She now is starting to think maybe mom wasn't so crazy after all, wondering if she really did see something out there. Mike opens up about seeing her out the window and knows for certain that it wasn't a dream. Mom was standing right there and he saw it last night. He still knows that it wasn't her, but admits it was scary, still thinking it can't be real. Later that night, there's more wolf howls, and Sarah comes to in bed, hearing scratching right outside. Mike comes in, afraid of something at the door. They cautiously approach it and fling it open to the priest back, telling them to come outside. Mike is all, "What are you doing here? It's 3 a.m., man." Louise flashes the light on him, seeing he has white eyes, knowing, again, it's not really the priest, him growling, "You want some rope?" And the phone starts ringing. The priest is gone, and Mike runs outside, the phone ringing again. He tells her not to answer it, so she hangs up the call and rips the phone line out. However, it was actually neighbor Charlie calling, pleading for her to pick up the phone. It seems for trying to help them, the devil turns its attention on poor Charlie, hearing creaking and thuds approaching in his little cabin. He readies his shotgun, coming to something just out of frame that gets to its feet. It's Louise, saying he doesn't belong here. Charlie tells the demon to get out of here, and Louise starts carving up her arms with a knife. He falls to his feet, begging to know what it wants, and he's overwhelmed by a loud screeching. Another Louise appears, whispering indistinctly into his ear, another saying, "You did this to me," and he blows his brains out with his gun. Now we've seen in detail how the devil works, appealing to his victims with persuasion to take their own lives in order to claim their souls. The next day, the siblings survey the area, baffled as usual, as there are no tracks or footprints to explain the priest's reappearance. They decide that it's time to take dad to a hospital, but we'll have to get a doctor out here first, both affected by the priest's face and white eyes. To verify the priest and their mother's relationship, Louise directly calls him and quickly learns that she was bamboozled. He's confused how she got her number, Louise saying that she got it from him, but he's actually in a hotel room in Chicago and hasn't ever met their mother or even been to Texas. Though there is a strange connection, the priest's own daughter was called Louise, but she killed herself years ago, choking up that she sounds just like her. They are able to get a doctor for their dad, who has bad news when they bring up wanting to bring him to the hospital. He won't make it to the highway. They try to maintain that it's their choice, but Doc says that he can't let them kill him, Mike crying that they just want to make him safe. But there's no further options beyond what they're doing, thanks to his current condition. The nurse has her own previously private thoughts on the matter. When Mike brings up about how her job must take its toll, she optimistically says that's not all she sees. She sees a lot of love. She believes that the worst thing in the world is for a person to die alone, a big factor to her overall story, going on that there is love here, and a soul needs love to keep it safe. As long as you have that, you're okay. But we've already seen how loneliness and not feeling love has taken its toll with the kid's mom. The nurse goes on that she can see the kid's fear and can feel it in the house. She knows that they don't believe in God, but she does, and thinks that there are horrible, wicked things in the world, and that they come for whatever they want. The goats somehow manage to flee into the wild, and later one three-legged one bleats back to the farm, and they discover pretty much their entire herd has been brutally slain, knowing it couldn't possibly have been wolves. works, and Mike is just wanting to get out of here, suggesting to call another doctor and to get him here ASAP. Louise cries, well, she did tell us not to come. A frustrated Mike yelling, God damn it. They make a big bonfire to burn the goats' bodies, now a scant handful of the animals left on the farm. There's still one that's a mama about to give birth, and he vows not to let them die. Not today, sitting with the cute fresh baby animals in the barn. A small glimmer of hope in their current misery. He chokes, if he's here, he's gonna work, echoing his father's creed, but orders her to stay back in the house with him. Mike is starting to really open up about things a little bit more, bringing up about what the nurse said about the worst thing being someone dying alone, the reason for his decision to stay. She wanted him to feel something, and he wanted to feel something too, but cowers away that now all he wants is to forget about this place. I'm scared, Louise. Me too, she agrees. Now that we know that Mike is even starting to break down, the devil takes advantage. Out in the barn, the bottles and horseshoes crash. Mike gets his knife at the ready, aggressively yelling for them to go. He then hears his mother singing about what a friend we have in Jesus, and she steps into the barn, dropping the bottles on the floor. You're not real, he grumbles, but she keeps walking towards him, backing him up to the wall, and gets right up in his face before disappearing. She, just as we saw with the Louise spirit and Charlie, whispers in his ear, and then he loses control. He takes his knife to his own throat, but unlike the others, is able to wrestle dominance away from the devil for the moment. However, he is more scared than ever, sitting alone in the bedroom and shaking, still clutching the knife. Louise is in bed with her dad, the door slightly creaking, but it doesn't sound like Mike. A shadowy hand reaches over them and gets in bed. The mattress creaking. It gets more aggressive, and Sarah opens her eyes in terror, hearing snarling and a soft growl inches above her head. She whimpers and jolts up, seeing her dad is gone, and when looking up, strangely sees him pinned to the ceiling. He reaches out, growling to run away, and she wakes up terrified. He's still in bed and has a pulse, well, that's a relief, but when searching for Mike, is distraught to learn that he's up and left her. What a coward, dude. Now she's all alone, just as mom was, and will only make her an easier target for the devil. It wastes no time messing with her. Louise startled by a knock at the door, and it's a young girl claiming to be Charlie's granddaughter and informs her about his death. She's baffled as they just saw him, but the girl plainly states, well, they found him and he's definitely dead. I don't know what to tell you, lady. Hearing her dad cough, she invites the girl in while she goes to check on him. The girl stops at the door asking, do you smell him? He's rotting, a beaming smile crossing her face. She then appears behind her. He's rotting, she repeats, all alone, and gets up over her. All alone, she says again, her voice turning distorted.
Little girl.
Louise turns away, and she's all alone again. She calls her bro, only getting his voicemail, and is still hopeful to get her dad out of here. Now pretty much chain smoking, the nurse arrives asking how he's doing, but Louise is distracted and distressed. Louise tries Mike again after plugging the landline back in, and at least does answer. He says he's been driving all night and wasn't going to stay there anymore. She can't believe that he really left, him excusing that his family needs him at home. She asks why he didn't just come to talk to her, a huge sticking point for the family as we're seeing here, but he says he knows what she would have said. And she starts sobbing, you left me? The nurse in the other room overhearing the emotional call. In the middle of knitting, she suddenly stops, her eyes glazing over and a smile crosses her lips. Devil's got her. Mike tells her that she just needs to leave, her crying that he's all she has left. But his wife and kids are clearly more important to him, saying they're his life. What about dad? She asks. He's gone, he responds coldly, and asserts there's nothing that they can change at this point, telling her to save herself and hangs up. The nurse screams bloody murder and has jammed the needle into her cheek. Why don't you listen? She shouts and stabs herself in the stomach and tells her to leave, violently slamming her head into the wall, knocking Louise unconscious. The nurse sniffles. I hear you. You're with me, Jesus. I feel you. Well, didn't help too much, jamming the needle in her eye and then in the other one for good measure. Surrounded by voices whispering, Jesus is here for you. Clearly the demon just messed with her. It gets louder and she laughs, holding up her hands before collapsing to the ground dead. Mike makes it home and learns the hard way that escape is impossible. Searching around the house for his family, he tragically finds them all dead and breaks down, falling to his knees and crying. Taking out his trusty knife, he considers for a moment before taking it to his own throat. Gagging, he looks back and the table is now empty. Oh dang, you got demon duped real bad, Mikey boy. It was all another illusion, as his family comes home and finds him bleeding out, leaning on the wall. Becky's screaming her head off at the sight. Pretty brutal for sure. Now all that's left is Louise, her apologizing to her dad, but knows she has to go, making it outside, but doesn't get too far, hearing her father coughing, and refuses to leave him and goes back in after all. I'm here, she tells him, getting down by his side, promising not to leave him. Still a little bit of love going here, so that's nice. She hears her brother calling for help outside, then becoming a chorus of overlapping voices. The candle flickers out out, and Dad wheezes, the floorboards creaking. Louise tells her dad she loves him and won't leave no matter what. He starts to gasp erratically, her begging him not to leave, and he stops breathing, finally passing on, leaving her in absolute anguish. She tries to shake him awake to no avail, then hearing her mom singing her song, and Dad attacks her with a growl. Essentially, she was doomed once her dad died, the one shred of love that was keeping her soul as well as his protected. Without that, it's all over, folks, and actually the whole family was pretty much screwed in the first place due to how estranged they were. It made them pretty easy pickings for the devil guy. As the nurse says, a soul that is loved is protected, and as we know, there really ain't much love left in this family from the get-go. I was also left wondering just how much of what we saw was the devil guy behind. There's some strange moments like Louise calling the preacher and appears to talk to him and brings up his dead daughter also called Louise. That feels dangling a bit, but I suppose the idea is that it really was behind literally everything we saw. It even was able to bend reality in many ways, as well as take on the physical form of anyone it encountered. So reality can't really be trusted throughout. And that phone call was still when Louise and Mike were certain there was some reasonable explanation behind this, and as we've seen, the devil enjoys kind of preying on their fears and messing with its victims. Another major question that I had watching is if the devil can so easily force others into killing themselves, then why does it take so long with the dad? I mean, everyone else is killed over the course of like a week. I considered that the devil happened across the family and saw that they were easily exploitable, and it was kind of feeding off the dad slowly, trying to bring the rest of the family and really anyone else it could into its radius to also claim their souls. Keep those souls a-coming, boys. Soul kebab. With that, we've reached the conclusion of this Ending Explained video for The Dark and the Wicked. Sure, it's a little slow at times, but these moments help draw out the characters' stories and ultimately made what happens way more impactful. Anyway, you can check it out to rent on any of the VOD services out there, Prime, Vudu, or whatever you fancy. And don't forget, before we go, you can send me requests for any movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you guys think of The Dark and the Wicked? Are there any other questions you're left with in the end? And what was your favorite horror movie you've seen this year? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.